You know that sinking feeling when you dig into your soil expecting life, and instead find dust, dryness, and silence? That was me just a few months ago. My raised bed in Perth, Western Australia, had gone from a productive veggie patch to a patch of compacted, grey, lifeless dirt. No worms, no smell of earth, no signs of microbe life. It felt like I was planting into concrete. But then, with a few simple, locally available ingredients, molasses, shredded cardboard, and alfalfa tea, I decided to try one last experiment. Within 10 days, red wigglers began to reappear. By the third week, native earthworms were weaving tunnels again, and by week 5 I had dark, moist, springy soil and healthy roots diving deep. Have you ever had a worm comeback moment in your garden? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear what worked for you. And if your soil feels lifeless right now, this guide might just be the jumpstart your garden needs. Let me walk you through exactly what I did, and yeah, more importantly, why it actually worked. Gardening in Perth comes with its own set of hurdles. We deal with sandy, alkaline soils that drain too quickly, dry out faster than you can water, and often lack the organic matter worms and microbes need to survive. Even in raised beds, these conditions persist unless we actively work against them. I used to think adding compost and mulch would be enough, but without the microbial life to process those additions, honestly, nothing changed. I realized I had to create an environment that mimicked what worms and fungi naturally seek in wild, living soil, moisture, carbohydrates, and surface-level decay. The first thing I brewed was alfalfa tea, not to feed the plants but to feed the fungi. Alfalfa is rich in natural plant hormones and contains amino acids that encourage microbial activity, particularly fungi that are missing in overly sandy or sterile soils. To make the tea, I soaked 2 handfuls of alfalfa pellets in a 10-liter bucket of water, added a tablespoon of unsulfured molasses, and let it steep for 48 hours. The result was a frothy, slightly sweet-smelling tea loaded with early-stage microbial activity. I poured this over the topsoil and let it soak in. Within a couple of days, the dusty gray soil turned darker and began holding moisture. But I didn't stop there. The next layer was shredded cardboard. I tore up old shipping boxes and soaked them in water overnight. Then I laid them across the bed like a mulch blanket. This wasn't just to keep weeds down. The cardboard acts as both a food source and a moisture sponge. As it softens, it becomes colonized by fungi and attracts worms who come to feed on the bacterial and fungal biofilms. The worms didn't arrive immediately, but by day 5 I noticed tiny castings near the surface and a few tunnels breaking through the soil crust. The life was coming back. The final ingredient was a diluted molasses drench. Molasses is full of simple sugars that feed aerobic bacteria. When used in moderation, it creates a microbial bloom that oxygenates the soil and encourages decomposition. So I mixed 1 tablespoon of molasses in 5 liters of warm water and, poured it evenly across the bed every 4 to 5 days for about 2 weeks. The smell of the soil began to change, which was pretty interesting. It went from neutral to this sweet earthy scent, and when I dug down a few inches the soil was noticeably cooler, held water longer, and, well, I could actually see visible fungal threads, something I hadn't seen in months. This shift in the soil biology is really what pulled the worms back, and not just the red wigglers from my compost bin, but, yeah, local native worms that had long disappeared. By the 3rd week, I saw some dramatic changes in root structure. My basil and beet seedlings, which had previously stalled, began to push deeper roots, and honestly, they doubled in size. Water retention also improved. Where I used to water daily, I now watered every 3 or 4 days and, honestly, still had damp soil beneath the surface mulch. But what blew my mind most was a patch of castings that appeared one morning after a heavy rain. I pulled back the cardboard mulch and found a cluster of worms right where I had poured extra alfalfa tea. It was undeniable. This combo had created a perfect microhabitat. Even areas outside the raised bed began to show signs of change. I used the leftover tea and molasses mixture on a neglected corner of the garden and covered it with straw mulch. Within 20 days, the same results: worm tunnels, soft soil, and moisture that lasted. Worms don't follow fertilizer, they follow food. That means dead roots, fungal hyphae, decomposing leaves, and the bacteria that eat them. The molasses provides fast energy for bacteria. The alfalfa tea introduces and feeds fungi. The cardboard gives structure and holds the whole ecosystem in place. Together, this trio replicates a forest floor in miniature, moist, decaying, and biologically rich. In dry climates like WA, this is exactly the environment that encourages deep biological activity. Not just worms, but mycorrhizal fungi, protozoa, and springtails that all play a role in healthy soil function. And once the worms come back, well, they do the rest. They aerate, they digest, and they turn lifeless soil into a living sponge. If you're in Perth or any region with dry, alkaline, or lifeless soil, don't give up. I nearly did. But this simple experiment, using ingredients I already had, brought my soil back to life in just a few weeks. And now I no longer see worms as a happy accident. They're the goal. They are the heartbeat of any healthy garden. If you found this guide helpful or inspiring, give it a like and share it with a friend who's struggling with dead soil. And don't forget to subscribe to Hydrohaven for more practical, tested methods that turn dirt into gold. Your garden doesn't need more products, it needs more life. Let's bring that life back, one worm at a time.